Guys, welcome back to Clockwork and Noodles for another weekly breakdown. This time we're doing episode 18 of Requiem of the Rose King. This is a very, very big episode. There's a lot of rug pulls. There's a lot of things we need to discuss before we get going. We are now around the halfway mark for the season. That means we've only really got 6 episodes left in that final quarter. That means my midway review is going up very shortly. In that review, I am calling out my top 3 OPs, EDs, and current standing of anime. What are my current favourite animes of this season? And am I going to be placing Rose King anywhere on those lists? So make sure you are subscribed to check that out. We're also aiming to get 1k of subscribers. Thank you guys so much. You are the guys roughly in the lead. You're now taking a bit of competition from Spy X Family, but every single Requiem video does seem to have the highest amount of views at the most, and there is generally slightly more likes on these videos. So you are the guys I am pleading for the most. If you are not subscribed, make sure you are, because it really does help me out. And we're trying to aim for that 1k mark so we can actually do live streams, start doing a bit more interactive stuff, and start making the channel a little bit more unique. There's probably a million different breakdown video channels out there, so we're going to try and start finding something that is our niche, making this a bit more fun. Eventually down the line we can do things like giveaways and things. For now, we're just aiming to hit that 1k marker. Let's get going, because episode 18, even my jaw may have dropped a few times upon realising the implications of a few things. So we have Richard now pining for Buckingham. Buckingham, however, initially had left in a bit of a jealous rage, lost his glasses. Some of this yearning from Richard is more the fact that they're clinging to somebody who said they accepted Richard as a demon. It's that idea of acceptance and familiarity. Initially, I was doubting the validity of this love, because obviously they do proclaim love for one another at the end, but I didn't know if it was down to the attachment issues or how it began, because Buckingham did initially do the forceful thing at the start and now it's grown into this. So whether Richard is unable to break away, we can debate that one for a while. There's a lot of debates going on there. Anne initially looking for Richard, and then that does start a bit of an issue with Anne now jumping to some conclusions that Richard is perhaps dating and seeing Buckingham. At the period of time, relationships between men, same-sex partners, probably did happen, but there's no records of it, or it wasn't accepted because it's a very, very religious country of the period. If Anne is thinking that, then that's still a conclusion nonetheless, but she is starting to jump to conclusions. She had already heard from her partner in the past, Edward, that Richard would never love her because Richard is a woman. That also is playing on her mind. This week we see Lucifer, I will say his name in a moment, framing Richard as a cruel and demonic king. These people were the ones mocking you. Now they're dead. Now you have killed them. This is you. You are evil. Trying to sow the seeds of unease. Everybody right now is already jumpy. It's going to be very easy to start sparking a bit of unrest, a bit of civil unease going on. Anne's mind is starting to wander. We do see that she's very lonely. I do feel for Anne. Anne has really been pushed around. It's not really her fault. Initially, it was Warwick's plan to have her in a certain way. Then she's ended up married to Edward, and then she was seen as a traitor. And now Richard took her on because that was the duty. The brothers planned to get Richard with Anne anyway. And I think that might even be Margaret's plan, just to get them together as well. Richard has, since the start, lacked this physical, emotional love towards her, which is really sad. She's pretty lonely. She's probably really lonely, and she's just got this love for her child, and she obviously knows that Richard isn't the father of that child. During the night when they're supposed to be quite close, there was this issue with Richard pulling away, hiding the body. Adds more water to the idea that Richard could be a woman. Obviously, this isn't quite right. This rumour with Edward, perhaps trying to put two and two together, but she is trying to stay in denial. There's a longing to be in denial to, it's not the case, this isn't the case, it's fine, I'm worrying for nothing. And this does seem to be this week's theme, the idea of staying in denial. Buckingham decides that this week he rejects the idea of having new glasses because he doesn't want to look at Richard. Buckingham thinks Richard has done the deed with Anne. That's what Buckingham told Richard to do, because that is the king's duty. You have made a king, that's supposed to happen. Because Buckingham is starting to realise that he loves Richard, he doesn't want to look at Richard. So I do want to question how blind he actually is. Some people just wear them for reading, so if he's got a simple case of reading, he can definitely still see Richard pretty clearly. He does stumble a little bit at the lake, but it's dark, so maybe he's tripped over a root. Or is he really literally looking at the court right now, seeing these blurs of colours going, I see a blur with black hair, a blur with green hair. One of you guys may be Richard. I don't know. That I can see being problematic if he continues like that. So, it is time for the first big jaw drop moment of the episode. Lucifer, the title reveal, Henry Tudor. And even if you're not the biggest English history buff, you know who the Tudors are. You know the Tudors, starting with Henry VII. Henry Tudor, Richard's successor to the throne. All of the pieces are starting to fall in place. Starting the Tudor period, the age of change. They stayed in power for a long time. It ends the very turbulent period that is the War of the Roses. Everything becomes stable. There are wars, but they're not internal wars. They are external. We have a few things that maybe erupt at like a civil unrest level, but there's no overthrowing like we've had with Henry or Richard. None of this going on. It's all, let's start a war with France for a bit. France becomes the enemy again. Upon the Lancasters' defeat, we've had Henry upon the run. Is the namesake to our shepherd Henry, which makes things complicated. It definitely comes up again and again this week. Names of this period, it was very common to name your child after you. So if I had a child and let's say I married Bob, Bob is going to be my child. Bob Jr. will be my child. That sounds so funny. Bob Jr. That was the common practice. So Henry is Henry. Edward unironically has been called Edward, despite the fact that Daddy is apparently Richard and Anne is Mum. A little bit obvious on the nose there that you've called the son Edward. At the time, I think being named after the brother of Richard, but it's just sad because Edward is actually the dad. This week, we're going into the Devil's Paradise. You can come as anything you want. It is a ball, a dress-up party. Richard initially presents themselves as themselves. I am the devil, I am the king, I am myself. But it does go initially down quite well. Everybody at the party really has a lot of fun, so it shifts this mood that's been hanging over everybody, this worry about these dead performers, and that, you know, Act 2 is supposed to be Adam and Eve. So we are going through the Bible right now. So we had Lucifer's fall to the Garden of Eden, symbolic that this is being referenced. Anne's costume idea, however, is a teeny weeny bit insensitive. Even if there's a chance that this rumour is true, Anne must be able to understand, if Richard is a woman, you must be able to understand even a little bit why Richard would be hiding that, why Richard isn't allowed to come straight out with that. So it's a little bit insensitive you trying to do that. I understand that you want to know, but you also don't want to know. She's also trying to seek a longing within not knowing and being ignorant to the idea. The reasoning as well that a woman wouldn't want to wear women's clothing in public, I don't see the logic behind it, because I know you might be trying to see boobs, but even with the dress that Richard puts on, you can't see cleavage. I would say as well, the dress that is worn isn't really to the period, but I like it. I think it's quite nice. And again, we do see it again worn by Beth. I'm not quite sure if that's supposed to mean anything initially. I do think Edward's costume is absolutely adorable. I love this hood. It's amazing. And it's got a tail. I didn't realise until Edward fell down. There's a tail on the costume as well. It's amazing. I love it to pieces. But Richard is now very suspicious of Anne. There's a bit of discontent between the two. Anne obviously thinks that Richard's hiding something. And even when we see Richard as a queen, Anne isn't fully convinced, and I'll get to that bit a little bit later because I want to quickly talk about the Queen Richard, looking absolutely gorgeous. If I was in the mood to cosplay, I've got a lot on cosplay wise, I would consider this. This is absolutely gorgeous. I'd wear this for like cosplay ball or anything. We don't really have much of a way of balls. I know in the US they've got a lot of dancers and people get together at night and they dress up. This is gorgeous. I would wear this. I love it. Topic of conversation is the idea Richard had been a woman. Catesby wouldn't be there in the way that Catesby is now. So it's Richard's fear again of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of being on your own. As we see next, Catesby says, even if I'm not in the position of dressing you, I would still be at your side. There's no matter what. I will be at your side no matter what. And that again, lots of love hearts, because that is Catesby stating the loyalty. I would still be with you even if you were a woman. I think Anne is slightly unconvinced and now more convinced that Richard pretty much is a woman. Queen Richard is stunning. I absolutely love it. I'm just amazing design, beautiful. I really do wish that the series as a whole was a bit more animated because I'd like to see that dressing movement as well. I like the idea that they chose to hide the eye because it's another striking look. It looks amazing. I really do like this costume. But Anne is definitely starting to doubt. I mean, I know she initially says, I feel hot. I feel really like I'm almost falling in love with Richard at this point. But I think it's because maybe as well the beauty of perhaps even a woman, or Richard is just a very beautiful character. In general, I think the look for Richard is beautiful. I've got a bit of a thing for heterochromia characters anyway, so Richard to me is just pretty. I'm like 50-50. I think she still knows that Richard could be female. Her falling in love with Richard as a reverse is a bit of a weird one. I'm at the line where I think Anne is 50-50 and she's trying to keep her head under the sand because it makes her happy and not knowing. But there's too much evidence to her to state Richard is a man. She's got half of the question correct. The shepherd moment, which I initially passed up as being, this could just be a spectre or this could just be somebody looking like it. I also thought it was Lucifer Henry unmasked and he'd returned in a different costume. But now with that ending, I'm not convinced. I'm really not convinced. Is it possible? And this is going to be a complete twist on history. It's going to be uncanon. Is that Henry? There was a bit when Richard finds Anne in the woods. They're like, stay away from the coffin and something. Is it possible? Richard damaged the eye, but maybe they left Henry for dead. It could be possible. We'll talk about it more at the end because that's when the character appears properly. But it is a moment that suddenly reminds Richard of Henry. Henry the Shepherd suddenly starts to plague them because it could be Henry. But we do get our first sight of Joan of Arc for the first time this season. And that's when we fall into the hands of Buckingham. I'm not going to lie, even though I said Buckingham had fallen off the charts, there's a danger to him. I do like him. And I did initially think he was my best boy. And obviously Catesby is my love. I love Catesby because he's the good boy. He's the good boy. But there's just an allure about Buckingham, and I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why my heart was starting to flutter during these sequences with the two, because technically anything which is going on we could say maybe it's a bit of Stockholm syndrome, the idea of I can't get away from the person who has captured me, the person who I needed something from, and they took my body kind of thing. I don't know, there's just something about Buckingham looking like this. And Buckingham is dressed as the devil. In this period of time, goats, sheep, anything with hooves was considered an impure animal, especially with the eyes as well. They were seen as familiars of the devil. So Buckingham is literally saying, hey, I am the devil. And obviously he slept with the devil theoretically, so that's why he's wearing that. I did almost forget that Buckingham was blind right now. Well, blind with a question mark. Now he's wearing a mask. He's completely probably blind. Buckingham definitely mistaking this character, thinking it's somebody else for Richard. And then he does state, if you were Richard, I wouldn't be able to let you go, which is where we get the admittance that I have fallen in love with you. And that's when we see Richard grasping for Buckingham, saying, it's me. And that's when we have the one night of pretending. I did also wonder if Richard was just trying to ride further and further away, trying to run away with just Buckingham wanting to abandon it all, which is weird because up until this point, both of them have wanted to put Richard on the throne. That's what they've got. They've got what they wanted. But it's never enough. It's never going to be enough. It's a beautiful sequence. I love this sequence. I think it's gorgeous. The colour palette, all whites, the innocence, the moonlight as well. Moonlight generally means it's uncovering a secret. Well, these two are in love with one another. We can debate the validity of it all, but they are currently in love. We do get that moment where they're together. And Buckingham states, I want you. And this might be the first person who's actually said, I want you. Because when Richard asked Henry ended up being seen by the mother figure and ends up calling Richard a demon, a devil. And at most points, especially, Richard's always been denied love. And I do think at the end of the day, all Richard wants is to be accepted. Buckingham has been the first person to say, I love you, I want you. So whilst Richard is away, the devil comes out to play, and poor Edward, he is following the white boar, and the white boar was very symbolic to Richard's childhood when Richard saves the white boar. And that's when we obviously come across Henry. Henry Lucifer reveals the truth. Are you really Richard's son? This may be something that maybe Edward's been wondering without saying anything, and maybe feeling that the way that Richard's so distant and never really spent too much time with their own son, maybe he doesn't like me, maybe he doesn't love me, maybe there is a reason why father doesn't want to be with me. And he looks shocked, but he also doesn't look as shocked as he would be if this is news to me, this is completely crazy. It might be just something that he just doesn't want to admit. Everyone's in denial. I think the theme of this week's episode is in denial until we have the breaking of that denial factor when both Richard and Buckingham confess. But yes, if you have figured it out, Edward and Henry Henry are indeed related because we have Edward, and Edward's dad is obviously Edward, and Edward was the son of Henry. Henry is related to Henry Tudor. I think it's very indirect, but they are distantly related, so they are actually related to one another. Beth dressed like Richard. I'm not sure where the dresses come from and whether this is symbolic of anything, but I love the fact that she roundhouse kicks Henry in the face. I like that, and then he just vanishes, which is quite spooky. Irony of Henry saying Elizabeth's name when actually the most famous female monarch of the Tudor period is indeed Elizabeth I. A nice bit of irony, but again, it's the idea that all these names just repeat. Everybody at this period of time has the same name. They are popular. We just use, my dad's name is Bob. I'm going to be called Bob, and his son's going to be Bob III. So the downside to this period, as we are finding out, is this name issue. Buckingham reveals that, I'm not Buckingham. My name is actually Henry. We have another Henry. This is unfortunate. Buckingham could have been an Edward. Buckingham could have maybe been a Catesby or something. Just anything but this. Poor Richard. So much trauma because Richard, there's no way Richard's going to be able to call Buckingham Henry. Richard is now thinking about Shepherd Henry. So unfortunate, but it's just the irony. It's just we've got Henry the Shepherd of the past. We have Henry Buckingham of the present right now. And we have Henry of the future, which is Henry Lucifer. Everybody is a Henry. Everybody is named Henry. I may as well be called Henry. How do you guys not know that my middle name is Henry? It might be. So let's talk about the end. Is Henry the Shepherd alive? It seems to be suggesting that yes, Henry is missing an eye. So is that all the damage that Richard was able to do? And maybe this trauma of being stabbed in the face or something, Henry was knocked out. And maybe Richard thought, oh my God, I've killed you and you're dead. We do see the coffin, but Anne isn't allowed near the coffin. And I'm like, why is she not allowed near the coffin? What are you trying to hide? Did strike me initially. I didn't say anything about it because at the time I think I was commenting about their first kiss. Is Henry alive? How is this gonna change the plot? Because we finally got Richard in love with Henry Buckingham, and now we're gonna have this disruption to the feelings again. But then again, Henry the Shepherd denied Richard. Henry called Richard a demon. Henry called them a devil. But is Henry out for revenge? What is going to happen when Henry finds Richard? What's going to actually happen? Because there was this trauma initially. Henry had the trauma of women. The idea of love and just anything beyond a sexual relationship was a trauma to him because of the past. Now on the plate, I do like the title of next week's episode. It's I'm going to protect him. I am Edward's father. So hopefully Richard is actually doing the right thing. There is only 6 episodes left. And as I said, Richard's reign is a pretty short one in the grand scheme of things. So as a king, not very long, not a popular king as we spoke before. Richard was found buried in a car park, not a loved king at all. Henry beforehand, Henry the Shepherd, is actually a much more loved monarch in general. There's a reason why people do this thing that he's a hunchback and Richard is evil and all this. Richard technically had I think it's scoliosis. He actually had a deformed spine. I might even put it on the screen. Skeleton was found and you can see the curvature in the spine. Poor Richard had scoliosis. There's a few people saying that DNA was taken from Richard and Richard doesn't actually match the brothers, Edward and George. So he doesn't match, which again throws it into complete array. We don't know where that comes from. But this could also further things. If Shakespeare knew, Shakespeare would yeah, that's why you're a demon. Your mother was untrue and she was cursed because she committed adultery or something. We don't know. History is a fascinating period because we don't have all the answers, and I think that's why it's so fascinating. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. It was a mind bender of an episode. Amazing episode. Can't wait to see where it goes. Wasn't expecting Henry to be alive, and also just how unlucky are you that your ex is called Henry and now your current lover is called Henry. That's unlucky. Have a good day, guys. Bye bye.